Hello everyone. Today's session is going to be a little bit different. I am going to link to an optional video, which you probably should watch, but it's not going to be part of the exam or anything like that. So it's a complementary video to what we've been discussing in morphology, but it's a little bit more advanced. So the main part of this lecture is going to be doing morphological exercises, because I know some of you wanted to at least have some experience, some practice for the exam. I've picked up the two exercises. One I'm going to show you how to do. This one's relatively straightforward, and the other one is much harder, and it's for you to try. So let's start. So this is the type of exercise I'm going to give you. We have some sentences here, right? Sorry. Up to here we have some sentences, and here's the sentence in Greek, and here's the translation. And the exercise consists on finding the morphemes in the original text. So I've gotten us started here with identifying the forms and the lexeme. So how would one go about this? Well, we start with the first sentence, and we see that the first sentence says the dog ate the mouse, right? And well, if we just look at the first sentence and then forget about everything else for a second, you see that that there's nothing we can gather from this. Any of these words could mean anything here, could be any kind of grammatical marker. So just the first sentence is not enough. So we look at the second one, right? And see whether there are any patterns or similarities which we can identify, and then try to work with that. Now, in the second sentence, we see that we more or less find the same words as in the first sentence. Now, instead of an O, we have an E, so there might be something changing, right? And instead of skilos, we find skilo here. And we have here pondiki, and here we have pondiki. So that one didn't change. And FIA and FIA didn't change, but teen and to did change. Yeah, and if you think a little bit about it, what you can see is here we have an O, right, after the T, and here we have an O, and here we have an E, and here we have an E. So you might start making the hypothesis, well, maybe those are related. Maybe that has something to do with each other. So now we look at the translation, and we see that the translation of this sentence is essentially the opposite of the first one. So while in the first one it's the dog ate the mouse, in the second one the mouse ate the dog. Well, with this we already can start making some hypothesis about what each of the words mean. So let's start with that. As I mentioned, I've already picked out the forms here, but you would have to do this on your own in the exercise. So what have we seen so far? We have seen skilos, pondiki. So we have skilos here, we have pondiki here, and we also have seen skilo. Yeah. Well, from the sentences, one could fairly straightforwardly say skilos must mean dog. Not just because I already wrote it down, but because it's happening here and also here. So unless Greek is a language which puts objects first and subjects last, then that's not likely. In this case, I'm telling you build skills stock, and one thing we can see is in both cases it is singular, independently of whether an os or an o. So we go by that, right? We can be fairly confident it's singular. We can start to suspect certain things additionally. We see that here's a subject, right? That this is the dog doing the action, and the mouse is the object. So, well, we can provisionally say that skilos is probably something like a nominative, which is the subject, and then the skilo might be something like an accusative. Now, to mouse, we're quite certain this is a singular. Mouse appears as a singular in both cases, right? And we could also say that it's likely to be a nominative and an accusative, but we'll see. Now we can get the next sentence, and now we're getting some additional information. Here we have plurals, right? And again, we start seeing some interesting similarities. As before, we see an O here instead of an O, but still the O, and a T instead of a teen, instead of, yeah, but still the T is there. And pondic is still there for mice, and skilo is still there for dog, but now we have this E here. And if you see, I didn't even add that one, right? Yeah. Skilui. Or did I? No, sorry. I did. I have it here. Right. So, in this case, it seems quite straightforward. This must be a plural. Both nouns in the sentence are plural. So that has to be a plural. And it's very likely also a nominative doing the action. And we see pondicus. Do I have pondicus? I do have pondicus. So it's there. We can say it's plural, and we can say it's likely an accusative. We get the next sentence, and now we have the opposite. So now we have the pondicus eating the skilos. Well, now we have this new form, skilos, and this has to be plural. Both nouns are plural, and it's likely an accusative because now the dog is being eaten. And pondicus didn't change. Sorry, that was. But what am I doing? Yeah, right. So we make sentence. Hide that one. And now we have some additional information. We have this fagito, which is quite different from before. Before we had efagan, and now we have something new, a toe, and a toe, and a skilo. Well, no. Let's leave that in. And a skilo, right? So we can put that there, and we know this has to be a dog, still, because dog is repeated, and the skill is still there. And among other things, this sentence already is enough to help us disambiguate between whether pondiki or pondic and skilo were dog or mouse, because now we don't have pondic in the sentence, but we still have a skill, and it's about a dog. So fallito must, this must be food, right? But we don't know what sort of case. However, since it's the dog's food, then the O is, well, it's very likely singular. It's just one dog there, and it's very likely a genitive. In case you're wondering, I'm putting brackets here because we're not sure. Like, we don't know what Greek does about case marking. So let's go to the next sentence. And now we're done with the dog forms. Now we have skilon, and it's otherwise almost identical, except that now we have a plural here. Yes, and then it must be a genitive also. So the contrast is between singular and a plural genitive. If you wanted to, you would be able to also figure out that this is the singular genitive, this is the singular, the plural genitive, and this is a plural accusative for the word class of dog. This is a plural accusative for the word class of mouse. A singular accusative for different word classes. These are nominatives, and we don't know what to might be, right? In this case, and fallito. Well, if you were to go by what we have here, you would likely conclude this must also be an accusative. And to make clear, I don't know any Greek. This is just from the sentences. So you can, the main point here is you can do all of this without knowing the language. And this might be wrong because I really don't know any Greek, but just from looking at this seems like it's actually also an accusative. It has the same form as an accusative here, if you can see. But in any case, so the exercise is not about fallito, it's only about dogs and mice. Now we can do the final two sentences at the same time, I guess, because it should be quite straightforward now. And we have parallel structures to the dog food. Now we have for singular genitive here, pondikis, and for plural gender here, pondikon. So we can finish this up, right? And that's basically it. So you can see the exercise is relatively easy and straightforward. It shouldn't take you too much time, especially if I give you already the segmentations. The exercises in the exam will be something like this. So now for a much harder exercise, which you should do on your own, here you go. So this is Chuvash. I'm not going to tell you where I found this, just so that it's not too easy to find the key. Also, please don't try to find the key, just try to do it. Otherwise, there's no point in this. The exercises are not graded, so you're not getting any credit for this. This is just for you to train and try to figure it out. So, to get you started a little bit, in the exercise you have some Chuvash verbs, and this is clearly a sort of voice alternation. You see that on the right column you have some sort of causative or transitive form, like to cripple, to torment, to bend, to lose, to lean. And the translations, these seem to be some either passivized or some kind of voice alternation where the agent is the object here. So, for example, So from to cripple, this seems to be the transitive where someone cripples something. This becomes a participle, and yeah, so the same alternation happens here. I teach something, and versus I learn. So the agent becomes also the patient in this case. And you see there are several alternations in Chuvash. This is a fairly inflective language, and you don't know, you don't need to know any Chuvash or even what the pronunciation of these things is. The whole point is that you should try to look at the patterns. So very simply, we can start with the first row, and you see Amman versus Ammant. So first hypothesis you can formulate is that to form this column you have to delete a T, or to form this column you have to add a T from this one. That's a first hypothesis, and you could check whether that hypothesis always works and whether that's as simple as that. So you look at another full cell and you see, well, that hypothesis doesn't work because here we have a van and here we have af. So it's not just a T. There might be some other morphemes going on here. You have here, for example, chet versus cheta. So there are at least 3 additional morphemes. So the task is look at all the rows, try to figure out what the morphemes they are, and try to fill in the forms. Some forms cannot be uniquely identified. There will be 2 alternatives. Mark those 2 as alternatives. This might take you some time, so take your time. That's why today's video is very short. If you're interested in the slightly more advanced topic, I'm also going to link it. And if you have any questions, you can of course send me an email. And that's basically it for today. Thank you.